So the Bible is unclear about the origin of angels.
Okay.
It doesn't say God created the angels before the earth was created.
Right.
Okay? So now we have to make some assumptions about angelic being. Are there angelic beings? Yes, there are. Are there angelic beings before humanity is created? Unknown.
It doesn't specify, right?
It doesn't specify.
It feels like it sprinkles that out. Like there's no history. I know God's word. He tells us exactly what he wants to tell us, but it's hard as humans not to try and like put pieces back together and be like, well, what does this mean?
So we know that there are beings out there that are spiritual beings. And here's where faith comes in, or here's where you make your presuppositional statement because you can't prove it, all right? If you believe that Yahweh, or God as we understand him, as he is revealed in Genesis 1 to 3, if Yahweh is the being that created everything, that he is the being that is eternal, no starting point, no ending point, has always been, then everything else has to be created. Now, I'm making some huge assumptions, aren't I? Number one, that there's only one being like that.
Okay.
Well, if there's one being, why can't there be 15 beings like that?
I don't know. That's a really good. Well, then, first question that pops in my mind is the Trinity. 3 persons, 1 God. Does that kind of cover that question a little bit? 3 people are eternal?
Well, let's deal with a different question first before we try to get into the intricacies of the Trinity.
And if we're getting too far off, we can loop back.
Let's talk about polytheism, multiple gods. Okay, so you have the Roman pantheon and Mars and those guys. You have the Greek pantheon, Zeus, and all of the other beings out there, right? You also have Thor and all of the beings that are in that particular group, Odin and Eden and all of those other ones that are out there. Okay. What says that they aren't real? What says that there's not multiple beings out there that are revealing themselves as God? Now, here's our problem with those representation of those beings. Those beings have a tendency to be a reflection of our good points and our bad points.
Okay. So, 2 positions on that. Either they're made up by us and they're just a reflection of, the archetypes that we have from a psychological standpoint in our own being, or would they be angelic beings that have just gone astray? Because isn't there, and now we're diving, like the episode's changing, because isn't there watchers, and maybe that's not the right group, but after Babel, then God put certain angelic beings in charge of the nations, and then they didn't obey and strayed away.
Okay, once again, you're making some assumptions that the scripture does, or the Bible does not state.
Okay.
All right?
I swear I heard that or read something similar.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not out there as a theory.
Yeah.
Remember, it's a theory. There's evidence out there for these beings. There's evidence that they are organized. There's evidence that they are in some way, shape, or form good, doing good to people, or doing evil to people. Okay? Question is why, what would that be, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
All right? When you talk about the Watchers, you're actually talking about a book called the Book of Enoch.
Okay, so the Watchers comes from there. Okay.
Yes. And that particular book is something that we would need to, do as our 100th anniversary or something.
Fair
like
enough.
That, so that
I haven't read it, so yeah.
Yeah. So you'd have to have some background to really understand what's going on.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. It's called the Book of Enoch. It was very normal to have a ghostwriter, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
It's called a pseudonym or a pseudo writer. It's writing in another person's name as if you were that person in that time. We know the book of Enoch is written pretty close to 250 BC.
Okay.
All right.
That's pretty late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an interpretation of or a attempt to say this is where evil spiritual beings came from. Okay. And they were originally designed to be watchers of us, Book of the Watchers.
Right.
But they quit being watchers and they started participating in human life.
Yeah. Dabbling in creation, not obeying the Lord.
Right. Taking on physical manifestations to have their own ability to procreate. Okay.
And that comes from Genesis, right? There was, I guess it doesn't say watchers. It says sons of God.
Correct. Genesis 6, 1 through 10 talks about the sons of God looked on the daughters of men, saw that they were beautiful, and took as many as they wanted. All right. The next line is, and the Nephilim were in the land in those days.
Yeah.
All right.
Men of renown, giants.
Right. Men of renown, giants, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so how do we interpret sons of God?
Yeah. And would they be image bearers is kind of what I'm wondering. Right.
We could say that. Well, the first thing you always do is if you have a term, you have to see how it's used in other areas in the Bible. Is that fair enough?
Fair.
So is the sons of God show up anywhere else in the Bible?
Does Paul mention it? I can't remember.
Well, he calls us children of God. He doesn't use the word sons of God. He calls us children of God. But yes, it shows up in the Psalms. It says you are made a little bit lower than the angels or the sons of God.
Okay.
Interpreted as angels. All right. Oh, well, hey, it's used one time in the Old Testament, and it's clearly a reference to angels, poetic reference to angels. So obviously, Moses, I'm assuming Moses wrote it, Moses had that as his thought pattern. Well, the problem is that if you read the book of Genesis, there are no sons of God.
No other lines. The line sons of God is not used more than
Right.
that one time.
Right. There's no reference to sons of God. There is implication that Adam is a son of God, but it's never stated. So then what would these sons of God be, if Moses in the first 5 books of the Old Testament doesn't talk about sons of God? And what is daughters of men? What does that mean?
Yeah,
And it's pre-flood. Whatever they did was so bad, was so evil that God said, I'm done, start over. Okay? So, hey God, what are you doing? What are you doing?
so the flood event, you're kind of tying it to the sons of God event, taking the daughters of men. Is that, do I understand you correctly on that? Or
So if we take the Noahic story all together, there seems to be something about the sons of God and daughters of men and these great men of old, the Nephilim,
yeah,
the giants, men of old, great men of old, men of renown, whatever you want to call them. It seems to be these 3 things coming together, saying they are doing things in such an evil way that they are bringing destruction to the world. And if God continues to allow humanity to do what it's doing, it's going to destroy the universe or the world, the earth, the actual ball of elements that's hanging out in the universe, so to speak.
Wow.
Okay. Now, question is, what are they doing, and what does that look like? Well, in spite of the fact that I don't particularly think the movie is very theologically correct,
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Noah with Richard Crowe, is that his name?
Russell Crowe,
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
they have the angels bound to the earth. That's what the rock creatures are. And,
Right. Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. They do a really good job of portraying the evilness of humanity before the flood.
Yeah.
So you see hunters hunting animals for no reason other than to hunt them. They're not doing it for food. They're not doing it for anything else but to be destructive. You see people cutting down forests, not to use it for good, but just to throw it in the fire. You see several scenes where men grabbing women, doing unmentionable things that we shouldn't be doing. No respect, no love, destructive in everything that they do. All right? So now let's think about this. Sons of God. Who would be the sons of God in people before Genesis 6? Well, that would be the line of Seth.
Okay.
The ones that are living life, serving God. If you count the generations, it's almost the seventh generation that you see Enoch walks with God, and he is no more because God took him.
That's fascinating.
But you go through Cain's line, and almost the exact same generation, you see a guy who has gone the opposite direction. He says, hey, wives, first polygamist that we ever know about. Remember, Adam and Eve were designed to be one partner for eternity, or for a lifetime. He's a polygamist, and he says, one girl's not good enough for me, right? And then he says, wives, come and hear what I've done. A guy wounded me, a little boy insulted me. So if Cain can get his revenge by 7 times, and I'm going to get my revenge 70 times 7. So
that's like a reference to endless, right? 70
Right.
times 7. Doesn't Jesus use that in a parable to forgive?
Correct.
70 times 7 times. Wow. Okay. That was Lamech that did the.
Lamech is how
Lamech.
you say it in. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So who is the sons of God? Well, there's an argument that the sons of God is the Seth line,
Right.
and that the sons of God have quit living as God has wanted them to live, and now they're just doing whatever they want to do.
But that line did continue to Noah, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Imagine.
So Enoch being taken by God had nothing to do with it. Didn't end the line, right?
No.
Okay.
No, but imagine Noah being the only person on earth that is honoring God in a world of dishonoring.
Surprised they didn't burn his boat down.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've thought about that. Like if he's the only guy, like how come they didn't like?
Well, he's just the weird guy down the street. You got one of those, right? The guy down the street that thinks, the earth is going to end, and so he's put tinfoil all over his house, and, you don't do anything to that guy. He's just a little off, but, as long as he doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, you just leave him alone. He's okay.
Yeah, he's been building this boat for 500 years, right?
The movie did a good job showing how like Russell Crowe with that. Like by the end, he's got a shaved head. He's
Yeah, right?
yeah,
So back to the original question about
image bearing. Right.
image
Okay.
bearing. We bear the image of guilt and restoration. You might
As in, we feel guilt and we want restoration, or we give restoration.
both.
Both.